Hey everyone, it's your girl Layla. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another story time. As you guys have seen from the title of this video, because that's probably why you clicked on it, right? As you can see from the title, this is not clickbait. This is actually a thing. So I'm finally gonna tell the story, and I've debated on whether or not I should share it for a while now, but I did ask Andy months and months and months ago if I could share this story time, and he definitely encouraged it. He said, yeah, definitely do the story time, but I didn't decide to film it till today for whatever reason. I know why. Let's go ahead and get started because this is probably going to be a long video. So grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, and let's get ready to spill some tea. Contrary to most of the story times that I've posted recently, this is a current story time, not one that took place back in 2012, 2013. Back then, no. This is a current story time. So if you guys are not already subscribed, by the way, make sure you guys go ahead, click the subscribe button below. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. And please leave a like on this video because it helps my channel out a lot when you guys do that. I did do a video about this in the past. It's called I'm Currently Living with a Sociopath or something like that. I will leave that in the pinned comment below, as well as the rest of my storytime playlist if you guys are interested. But that goes into a backstory on how my childhood was growing up and my relationship with my dad, but it doesn't go into the full story. That's like a whole other story time that I could talk about, which I probably will end up doing. But in today's video specifically, I'm gonna be talking about why my dad hates my fiance. In today's video, I obviously don't have to change anybody's name because you all know who Andy is. You've seen him in my videos, you've seen him in my vlogs. We all know who Andy is. I'm not gonna do a backstory, but I'm gonna basically like tell you guys a little bit more so you guys understand the personality of my dad and how our relationship has kind of been in the past. So basically, my dad currently lives with me. Now, don't get this twisted. I could do a whole story time again on my living situation, but basically, my dad lives with me. I own this house. I co-own it with my mom. We purchased this house back when I was 24, so my mom and I own this house. I pay for the mortgage. My name is on the mortgage. If it's public record, you could probably look it up and see that I am the owner of this house, and my dad's name is not on it. So he basically lives here with me, but I'm paying for the mortgage, Andy's paying for the utilities, and my mom is basically paying for my dad's car. And not that this is relevant information at all, I just want you guys to know, like, my dad doesn't work. He doesn't help out, he doesn't contribute to our whole housing situation. He basically lives here because it's the only place that he could live, if that makes sense. Like, my mom's kicked him out before and he's had nowhere to go, so that is why he lives with me, not because it's by choice, but because he has to, because he doesn't have anywhere else to go, basically. So he hates me, he hates my fiance, he doesn't really like my mom, he doesn't like my dogs. I mean, he really probably doesn't like his living situation at this point, but he has nowhere else to go. So that is our living situation right now. He does live here, but don't get it twisted. I don't live with him, he lives with me. So another thing I would like to mention is if my dad could have it the way that he wanted, if he could control me, which no man is gonna control me. Let me just tell you right now, no one, no woman, no man is gonna be able to control me because I am my Instagram bio. I am a free spirit, and I've always been that way. My mom has always instilled that into my head, to never take shit from a guy. Don't let anybody tell you what to do. You can take people's advice, but you don't have to do it. You're not obligated to do it, and that's how I've always been. I've been pretty just strong-willed, and I just don't listen to what people have to say necessarily. And the way that he wants me to live my life basically is, well, he wants me to basically be a single virgin that goes to church all the time, works all the time, works her butt off all the time, works night shifts, but does work around the house during the day, so basically like never sleeps, doesn't have any friends, he doesn't like my friends, basically like no going out without him, no going on vacations without him. He just really wanted that cookie cutter perfect daughter, but I'm not any of those things. I'm not the perfect daughter. Again, I'm my own person. He wants me to be a certain way, but I'm not at all that person. So now that you guys know a backstory, let me get into the nitty-gritty. Let me tell you guys why my dad really hates my fiance. If you guys are unfamiliar with how Andy and I met, we've known each other since we were kids. He actually blew out my candle on my 3rd birthday. So he was a little shit ever since we first met. We knew each other as kids. My mom and his mom were friends because they were from the same part of the Philippines, and we lived in a predominantly almost like all white community, and there was very few Filipino people that lived there, and of course all the Filipino people that lived there were friends, obviously, right? So my mom and his mom were friends when we were kids, but then my family moved away. We moved to a different province, which is Alberta. And Andy and I didn't talk to each other until 2014 when he started talking to me on Facebook. So the first time Andy ever came to see me, this was on my birthday in 2014, right before we started dating. So we were long distance for 4 years. He lived in Edmonton and I lived in Calgary. So every time he would come to Calgary and vice versa, every time I would go there, I would stay there for the whole weekend. And every time he would come here, he would stay here for the whole weekend, because if you guys know the drive between Edmonton and Calgary, it's just long, it's boring, it's just like a flat, straight road. It's not a fun drive, and if you're going from one city to the other, you're most likely to stay in one city before like traveling back, because it's just a really long drive if you don't do that. So the first time Andy came to see me, my dad was already familiar with him. I told him, oh yeah, Andy's coming to see me or whatever, and he knew who he was at that point in time because he knew him as a kid, right? So when they first met, I was upstairs getting ready and taking my time. I was trying to look cute for him or whatever. And he ended up meeting my dad first. He met my dad and my crazy dog that wouldn't leave him alone, Miss Morgan. So yeah, they met, they talked, like Andy talked about his work and all of that stuff, and then I came downstairs, we went out for the night, we went clubbing, which is so weird because Andy doesn't go clubbing. I used to like to go clubbing all the time. So we went clubbing, we went out, we stayed out till like 2 a.m, came home, which was so normal for me because I would do that all the time and would bother my dad like to no end because I was always coming home at 2 or 3 a.m. That was just who I was, and you just couldn't tell me otherwise. I was just not the type of person that you'd be like, no, you need to be home by this time, by this time, by this time. I was an adult already by that point in time. I was 22. So I was gonna go out and I was gonna stay out however long I wanted to stay out, and that was fine because adult. Basically that was our first night, and then the weekend progresses, and of course like the next night I get drunk because it's my birthday weekend, of course. What else are you gonna do on your birthday weekend when you're 22? Of course you're gonna get drunk. So I went to my friend's house, we drank, we smoked a little weed, we had a bonfire, like it was really cool. I had called my mom and I was like, I'm gonna have to stay at my friend's house because I cannot drive. And she's like, yeah, obviously like you shouldn't be driving while you're drunk or anything, so make sure you get some sleep and then come home in the morning. So that's exactly what I did. This pissed my dad off because I had not only stayed out late, but I stayed out the whole night the next night, and he was basically like telling me, oh, you don't want Andy to have the wrong impression of you. You don't want to seem like that type of party girl or whatever. Like you don't want to lose him because he seems like a good guy. So at that point, he did like Andy. At that one point. Fast forward, Andy comes to visit again and we head to Jasper for the weekend. We're with my best friend this whole time. We're gonna call her Eloise again because I don't know if she wants to be named in this video. So we're gonna call her Eloise. She's in my previous story time as well as Eloise, so that's what we're gonna call her for this video. So Eloise, Andy, and I all went to Jasper for the weekend. Obviously my dad wasn't happy about this because I was going to stay in a hotel with a guy. So at that point in time, my dad did not trust him. And I would like to mention again, for clarification, at this point I was 23 because I just had my 23rd birthday, I think. Yeah, I had my 23rd birthday. As a 23-year-old woman, I was going with my best friend and this guy that I was interested in and staying at a hotel for the weekend, which wasn't a huge deal for me. I would do this all the time with Eloise minus Andy. Like, it would just be me and Eloise. And he didn't like Eloise. He still doesn't like Eloise. He just never liked our friendship because we would just always spend a whole lot of time together. We'd always be out late. We'd always be clubbing or whatever, and he just didn't like that. He was against this whole weekend and that whole situation. Fast forward, Andy asked me out. We're together. We're boyfriend, girlfriend. He came over for Christmas that year, and he had to stay in another room, in the guest room, which that was a tiny house, so the fact that we even had a guest room for Andy to stay in was a little bit weird. But regardless, he had his own room and I had to sleep in my own room, even though we're boyfriend, girlfriend, even though we're adults. That's what the situation was at that point in time. Fast forward a little bit, we're 6 months into dating, we're 6 months boyfriend, girlfriend, and I get my tonsils removed and I'm in a lot of pain. Usually what Andy and I would do whenever he would come visit me is on the Friday night when he would drive up to Calgary, we'd just watch movies until like 2, 3 in the morning. So he'd always be in my room till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then he'd just go to the guest room, go to sleep. When I got my tonsils out, I was in a lot of pain. I had to put like this ice pack on my neck. I just remember having to change the ice so frequently, and just like the only thing that felt fine and that helped me sleep was this ice pack. So I basically told Andy, I'm like, please don't leave me. I don't want to sleep alone. I'm in a lot of pain and I need somebody to constantly change this ice pack every few hours because I just can't deal. So he agreed, and he's like, I don't want to sleep in the guest room anyways. I'll stay with you. At that point, that really pissed my dad off. So when Andy went back to Edmonton, he sent him a message on Facebook saying that he was no longer welcome at my house and that he had to stay in a hotel to his own expense if he wanted to come see me in Calgary. He had to rent his own hotel. He was no longer welcome in my house. And Andy was a little bit shocked by this, obviously, because if you think somebody's parents like you and then they send you a message like that, you're kind of like, what? So he did message my mom. He asked my mom if it was okay for him to come over next time, and my mom was like, yeah, of course. Like, why are you even asking me that? Of course you're welcome in my house. And he's like, well, Layla's dad doesn't think so. And then she's like, well, don't listen to him. Like, it's not his call, it's not his house. Like, come over whenever you want, stay whenever you want. I don't want you renting a hotel. Cause like, I mean, if I went to Annie's mom's house and she was like, no, like, you can't stay here, get a hotel, like, my mom would probably have a problem with that too, right? That happened. So that's like the first thing that happened. Next thing that happened, my dad sent me, there would be like little petty things throughout that whole time. There would be like him sending me messages that he would be like sending me random messages on Facebook like, oh, I don't like your boyfriend's profile picture, tell him to change it. And I'll insert that picture here. It's not really offensive to me at all, but to my dad, he really took offense to it, which is not really like offensive. Just random stuff like that would happen. My dad would always tell me like, oh, you're sinning, you're doing something wrong. Whenever we'd stay together in the same room or whatever, he'd have an issue with it. But fast forward a little bit. So back in November 2018, Andy had asked my parents for my hand in marriage, even though I had told him previously, because he told me like months before we were to get engaged, he'd want to ask my parents for my hand, even though I said that wasn't something that was important to me. I know that there's some girls that are like, no, you have to ask for my parents' hand in marriage, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have to ask them first. Like, I'm not that type of person. If you want to ask me to marry you, you straight up ask me. You don't have to involve my parents. You don't have to ask them. But it was very important to him, and he was like, oh, it's a, what is it called? Like a respect thing. Like, I feel like I need to do that. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever you need to do, go ahead, do it. But it's not something that is important to me, and it's not a huge deal if you don't do that, you know what I mean? So November 2018, right before he proposed, like the night of, he did ask my parents if he could have my hand, and which they said yes, and they both seemed really happy about it. My dad even seemed really happy about it. And then fast forward a couple weeks later, I feel like I'm leaving parts of the story out, but basically a year before this, we talked about Andy moving to Calgary and living with me. I had just purchased this house and I was like, I want you to move in with me because I feel like we've been long distance for, at that point we were long distance for like 3 years, but it was starting to take a toll on me. I just hated traveling to Edmonton. I hated not seeing him throughout the week. I hated not seeing him after work. I hated just only seeing him once a month and just driving back and forth. You guys don't even know how much I hated that. Even though right now I kind of miss it. I kind of miss going on those road trips, those solo road trips and just driving. It's like therapeutic sometimes. But I really just didn't like that drive anymore. And I just told him, I was like, I need you to move here for me because this isn't going anywhere. So he agreed to give him a year to let him work and then try to find work in Calgary. So by that point in time, when he did ask me to marry him, he had already had a job lined up in Calgary and he already had plans to move. So about 2 weeks before he was moving here, I had mentioned my mom frequently like, oh, I'm going through this, I'm depressed, I'm sad. My boyfriend is all the way in Edmonton and everything and I want him to be here with me. Like, she knew the whole situation and she's like, yeah, like he has to move here, you know, eventually. So about 2 weeks after we got engaged, my mom and I went up to Edmonton because I had to get work done on my car and Andy worked at a dealership at that point in time. So he was working on like oil changes and stuff for me. So we went to Edmonton, we went to a restaurant and him and my mom basically talked. He's like, yeah, I'm planning to move there. If it's okay with you, you know, I'll move in with you guys. Of course, this was like important for me, for him to like ask my mom if it was okay too, because my mom is co-owner of this house. Even though I'm paying for it, my mom's still co-owner of this house. She still lives here. She has to be comfortable with him moving in and everything. So she was like, yeah, of course, I just need you to help with paying utilities, bills and stuff like that. And Andy's like, yeah, obviously that's what I'm gonna do. I'm here to help you guys because obviously my dad isn't helping us paying anything. Like he's never been paying any bills or nothing ever since we moved here. He's like, yeah, I can help you guys out with bills and stuff. That's no issue for me. At least you have somebody now that can help you. So, because at that point, my mom and I were just paying for everything. He moved in a couple weeks later in December. He moved here actually on his birthday. And of course, my dad was extremely pissed off at this point in time. He yelled at my mom. He's like, how could you let him move in? Blah, 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 blah. He ended up saying basically like he's gonna be moving out soon because he just didn't agree with this living situation. He didn't like Andy. He didn't like that we were sleeping together in the same room even though we weren't married. Even though my mom was like, I want you to take your time before you do actually get married because you really have to be sure before you marry somebody because I don't want you to end up, you know, in like a year or so get a divorce, you know. So she basically said that I could take as much time as I wanted to, that I didn't have to feel pressured to get married right away. Basically, yeah, all shit went down when Andy moved in. Like a month later, my parents and I were just arguing a lot because my dad is very manipulative and he was like manipulating my mom into thinking that I hated her. Which that could not be far from the truth. I love my mom. I don't know if you guys know me, but I do really love my mom. And we got into it. We got into a big fight. We were actually gonna end up selling the house, but I didn't want to sell the house because I was the one who was paying for it. So basically, like, they needed 2 signatures. If we were gonna sign this house, they would need my mom's as well as mine. And my dad was basically like, if she doesn't sign it, you could sue her. Like, sue your own daughter? What? So eventually my mom realized what was going on. This was like a ploy to get money, you know, like because they're still technically married, he would inherit like a portion of it. She basically, through seeing me break down, seeing me have panic attacks and witnessing a panic attack, almost having to call an ambulance because I didn't have any Ativan to help me breathe, she finally realized, okay, this is toxic, this is not okay, and he is like manipulating me right now. and my daughter doesn't hate me. After that point in time, if you guys are familiar with Andy, you know that he's really into his computers. He's really into his computer builds. He has a whole channel on YouTube dedicated to his computer builds. And my dad basically sneezed all over his computer, or like spit all over his computer. Just the whole disrespect of doing that, and the whole disgustingness of doing that, and the fake apology that came after that was just crazy. He still denies it to this day. Even though I completely believe that he did that, there was still like residual like splatters on his keyboard after Andy had cleaned it. When Andy got his motorcycle, my dad was mad because he lost his parking spot in the garage, which he's not paying for this house. Andy's been paying for utilities, so he obviously deserves a place to put his motorcycle. And he ended up actually sneezing or spitting all over his motorcycle, and I still have photos of that, so I'll include that into this video. Basically, their relationship to this day hasn't been good. They don't talk to each other, they don't acknowledge each other. They live in the same house, but they don't talk to each other at all. They completely avoid each other, which is better than arguing. Honestly, it's better than all the petty stuff like throwing away Andy's stuff, spitting on his stuff. It's better than that, but it's still bad, you know. And he actually did mention to my mom that whenever we did get married and have kids, he would never accept my children with Andy as his own grandchildren. And that's something that really bothered me at first, but now I just don't even care anymore. Like, I don't have any feelings towards that. I don't have any bad feelings towards that. I just know that he just really hates him, and there's nothing I can do about that. He thinks that I'm a bad person because I don't go to church and I sin. At the end of the day, I am who I am, and you can't change me. Hi guys, so I'm gonna be completely honest with you and tell you guys what happened, why the end of that video was so quiet and awkward. I don't even know if it's gonna be quiet and awkward because I kind of talk loud in my videos, because I know I don't have a mic or anything, so I have to talk loud. But I basically kind of just stopped recording because my dad came home and it just would have been awkward. So I just wanted to kind of touch on a few things. Okay, so now that I'm in a place that I'm stopped and it's not bumping every 5 seconds, I kind of wanted to finish the story. So I was at the point where Andy had gotten a motorcycle and my dad was mad because he stole his parking spot, basically. And I thought that this was validated because, first of all, why would you put a motorcycle outside? The motorcycle is like the first thing that somebody would steal. Second of all, it's like -20 during our winters or higher. Like last week it was -40. Why would you have a motorcycle out during that temperature, like out on the street? And thirdly, Andy's paying for the bill, so why wouldn't he have a spot for his motorcycle, right? So my dad was super mad about this. He actually spit all over his motorcycle, and he basically told my mom that he had sneezed, and that's what happened. But I mean, first of all, why aren't you covering your mouth when you sneeze? And secondly, why are you sneezing on somebody else's stuff, like on somebody's motorcycle? Like, it doesn't make sense. So there was stuff like that, and then there's of course those like petty moments where he's always just like mumbling about stuff. Back on my birthday, he was upset that we didn't include him, but the thing is, it was my birthday, and if you're not going to be paying for your own food, which he would have had me pay for it. If you're not paying for your own food, then I'm probably not gonna invite you to go places, you know? So he was mad about that. He made like a fake apology, and that's kind of where we're at this point. He obviously didn't mean anything he said during that apology, and he's still at that place where he doesn't talk to Andy at all. So I think that's fine, because
I really
it's
don't
like...
give a shit.
Oh yeah, he's here with me. Hi.
I kind of forgot.
Yeah, so that is pretty much it, I think. I don't know if I have anything else to add. I'll just include it on the screen somewhere. He has me blocked on Facebook, by the way, so I mean, I'm sure you guys will see another story time with me talking about this, because this is not the end of the story. There's obviously still stuff that I haven't told you guys. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please go ahead, click the subscribe button below. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I will see you guys soon in my next one. Bye.